Hello everyone, welcome to History at Bedtime. Tonight, we step softly into a world where distant cities hum quietly under the early morning sun, yet shadows of tension stretch across continents, whispering stories of decisions that would ripple across oceans and generations. You probably won't make it through this day without sensing the distant rumble of conflict or feeling the quiet weight of anticipation. But that's exactly the point. Let curiosity soften the edges of the present and let yourself drift gently into the past. Before we continue, remember to leave a comment with your location and local time. And if you enjoy these gentle journeys through history, please like and subscribe. Your support helps these immersive, slow-paced stories reach more curious minds. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. Take a deep breath and imagine September 1939. The streets glint with the early light. Vendors arrange their produce in small markets, and radio broadcasts hum softly, hinting at events that will soon change everything. Major fact: World War II officially began on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, triggering a cascade of alliances and conflicts across Europe. Another fact: within weeks, Britain and France declared war, setting the stage for a global struggle that would last 6 years and reshape the modern world. You walk past a small village, noticing the faint scent of freshly baked bread and the clatter of early morning chores. Obscure tidbit: in some towns, residents used colorful flags or cloth markers to signal impending air raids. A mix of practical strategy and local superstition. Historians still debate whether these systems truly saved lives or simply provided a comforting illusion of control. You follow the quiet rhythm of daily life across Europe, sensing the tension beneath calm streets, the stories of families, neighbors, and strangers intertwining with the larger forces shaping the world. Even as conflict looms, a subtle pulse of human resilience threads through ordinary moments. And it is here, in these quiet acts, that history begins to breathe. The morning spreads slowly across towns and cities, casting long shadows and bathing streets in pale sunlight. You wander through narrow alleys and marketplaces, noticing details: the uneven cobblestones, the gleam of early dew on windows, and the soft hum of conversation between neighbors. Major fact: in 1940, Germany launched its blitzkrieg across Western Europe, rapidly conquering Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France, using a combination of mechanized infantry, tanks, and aerial bombardment. Another fact: Britain, facing imminent threat, began evacuating children from urban areas to the countryside in Operation Pied Piper, moving more than 5 million young lives in a matter of weeks. You pause to watch a group of children laughing and skipping along an alley, their carefree sounds oddly resilient against the distant roar of engines and the faint tremor of armored vehicles in the distance. Obscure tidbit: some families sent messages using homing pigeons when telephones and radios were either unavailable or too dangerous to use. Historians still debate whether these pigeons ever decisively altered military outcomes, though they offered a curious glimpse into human ingenuity during crisis. The air carries the mingling sense of bread baking, coal smoke, and a faint tang of iron from nearby factories. You notice a soldier walking past, helmet under one arm, a letter in the other, and you imagine the mixture of anxiety, hope, and duty that accompanied every step. Quietly, life continues. Small acts of bravery, kindness, and perseverance weaving together a subtle rhythm that threads through the larger tapestry of war. And so, with each step and each breath, you begin to feel the heartbeat of history, the vast machinery of conflict tempered by small human gestures of resilience. You are moving through a world in flux, yet cushioned by the quiet, enduring routines of ordinary life, carrying you gently toward reflection and imagination. By mid-morning, the sun has climbed higher, casting a warm, hazy light over rooftops, fields, and quiet villages. You wander along a country lane where the gentle rustle of leaves accompanies the distant hum of a train, carrying both goods and whispers of the wider war beyond. Major fact: 1941 saw the launch of Operation Barbarossa, when Germany invaded the Soviet Union, marking the largest military offensive in history and drawing the Eastern Front into a deadly, sprawling theatre of war. Another fact: at the same time, the siege of Leningrad would eventually trap over 1 million civilians inside the city, surviving on rationed food for almost 900 days. You pass a small farm where a family tends their vegetables, watching the sun glint off iron tools and soil still damp from morning dew. Obscure tidbit: some villagers hung charms or small trinkets in windows to ward off bomb damage or misfortune, blending superstition with hope. Historians still debate whether these charms provided actual protection or simply comforted anxious hearts. The soft clatter of hooves echoes along a nearby road, and you notice a postman making his rounds, carrying letters that connect people separated by fear, distance, and circumstance. Life persists in quiet, subtle ways, each small interaction forming a delicate counterpoint to the thunder of machinery and conflict elsewhere. As you continue walking, the faint smoke of a distant factory mingles with the scent of wildflowers growing along the hedge, creating a strangely comforting aroma. Children play quietly in a garden, their laughter a gentle reminder that life continues, even amid uncertainty. You feel the rhythm of daily life, punctuated by the undercurrent of global events, like a river flowing calmly yet powered by currents deep beneath its surface. And so you move through this day in history, noticing both the ordinary and the extraordinary, letting the world of 1941 unfold around you slowly, gently, as if each breath and step could carry you further into understanding and calm reflection. As afternoon arrives, the light softens, scattering gold across cobblestone streets and quiet courtyards. You find yourself near a railway station, where trains hum softly and people move in measured patterns, carrying supplies, letters, and news across the continent. Major fact: the Allied powers and Axis powers were already entangled in global conflict, with battles raging in Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific, shaping the fates of millions. Another fact: Rationing had begun in Britain and other countries, fundamentally altering daily life, from the meals on the table to the clothes worn by families. You notice a mother helping her child balance a basket of food, their movements careful yet patient, a rhythm shaped by necessity and care. Obscure tidbit: some families in occupied territories would use coded rhymes or secret markings to communicate resistance or warnings without attracting attention. Historians still debate how effective these small systems truly were, but they reveal the ingenuity of ordinary people navigating extraordinary times. The air carries the distant hum of airplanes overhead, a soft reminder of the ever-present tension above. A bell tolls somewhere in a church tower, echoing across the streets, blending with the low murmur of conversation, the click of boots on stones, and the gentle wind rustling through trees. You pause, letting the mixture of ordinary life and subtle unease settle around you, noticing how even small gestures, sharing a loaf of bread, a whispered joke, or a smile, anchor humanity amid the vast machinery of war. As evening approaches, you watch shadows lengthen along rooftops and gardens, feeling the quiet pulse of a world in flux. Life continues in a delicate balance, ordinary and extraordinary, calm and anxious, resilient and fragile. And as you follow these quiet rhythms, you begin to sense how the human spirit threads through history, connecting the individual, the family, and the larger tapestry of global events, carrying you gently toward contemplation and rest. The late afternoon stretches lazily across the countryside, brushing golden light over farms, rivers, and quiet villages. You walk along a narrow path bordered by hedgerows, hearing the soft chirping of birds and the occasional bark of a dog, a gentle counterpoint to the distant hum of engines and the faint whistle of trains carrying people and supplies. Major fact: 1942 marked the Battle of Stalingrad, one of the bloodiest battles in history, where urban warfare and harsh winter conditions pushed both Axis and Soviet forces to unimaginable extremes. Another fact: at the same time, the Allies were beginning to gain momentum in North Africa, laying the groundwork for campaigns that would shift the balance of power. You pause near a small brook, noticing children playing with sticks like swords, their laughter a strangely cheerful undertone to a world dominated by conflict. Obscure tidbit: some civilians kept small journals or scrapbooks documenting daily life during wartime, recipes, chores, minor victories, and little stories of hope. Historians still debate how widely these personal archives were kept, though they now offer rare glimpses into ordinary life under extraordinary circumstances. A farmer tends his fields, the rhythmic swish of his tools blending with the soft rustle of leaves. Life, though framed by conflict, continues in its own gentle cadence. Animals grazing, water flowing, smoke rising from chimneys. You notice the subtle interplay of ordinary human routines against the backdrop of a vast, unseen conflict, realizing how resilience takes root in small, everyday actions. You follow the path into a village square where neighbors greet one another with quiet smiles, sharing news, bread, or a kind word. The subtle human connections, gestures, that might seem insignificant in the grand sweep of history become the threads that weave together communities, creating a fragile, comforting continuity even as the world outside trembles. Evening approaches with a soft, cooling light, brushing rooftops and cobblestones in muted gold and rose. You wander along a quiet street where shopkeepers are closing their windows, the scent of evening meals drifting into the air. Major fact: 1943 saw the Allied invasion of Italy, a turning point in Europe as forces pushed northward, liberating regions one town at a time. Another fact: rationing and wartime shortages affected everything from food to clothing, compelling families to be inventive, resourceful, and patient. You pass a small bakery where the faint aroma of warm bread and yeast invites a slow, calming breath. Obscure tidbit: in some cities, neighbors would leave hidden gifts or notes in each other's windows as a subtle way of sharing hope and solidarity. Historians still debate how prevalent these acts were, but they reflect the human need for connection and comfort even in times of uncertainty. The hum of distant engines blends with the soft whisper of wind through trees. A child tugs at her mother's hand, pointing to a lantern flickering across the street, and you imagine the mixture of curiosity, fear, and wonder that accompanied each new evening. Life continues in measured, comforting patterns, meals prepared carefully, letters exchanged, and small rituals that tether individuals to one another and to the comforting rhythm of home. You pause on a bridge over a quiet stream, watching reflections ripple across the water, even amid the far-reaching currents of global conflict. There is a heartbeat of ordinary life, carrying a sense of continuity, resilience, and subtle hope. And as darkness deepens, you feel the gentle pull of calm, the quiet moments threading seamlessly into the larger tapestry of history, carrying you softly toward reflection, understanding, and rest. Night begins to settle softly over the countryside, wrapping the villages, farms, and streets in muted shades of blue and grey. You walk past the quiet glow of lanterns flickering in windows, each one a small beacon of warmth and normalcy amid uncertainty. Major fact: 1944 saw the D-Day invasion, when Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy, initiating a massive push to liberate Western Europe. Another fact: the same year, the Warsaw Uprising erupted, with civilians and resistance fighters striving to reclaim their city from occupation. You pause near a field where a farmer's horse nuzzles its companion, the soft rustle of hay mingling with the distant echo of train whistles and the subtle creak of wind-tossed branches. Obscure tidbit: some towns would leave small, handmade tokens in public squares, tiny wooden figures, painted stones, or folded notes as signs of hope or remembrance. Historians still debate whether these gestures were intentional morale boosters or simply folk rituals that became part of local law. The cool evening air carries a mixture of smoke, damp earth, and the faint aroma of evening meals. You notice a group of children playing quietly near a well, their laughter light yet resilient, a soft counterpoint to the muffled rumble of distant engines. Life persists in subtle, tender ways. A neighbor helping another with firewood. A letter arriving by post. The shared comfort of routine tasks performed carefully, thoughtfully, with human steadiness. As you continue walking, the gentle sway of branches and the occasional bark of a dog create a rhythm that feels almost musical. You are moving through a world shaped by extraordinary events, yet tethered by ordinary human gestures. Even amid the vast machinery of war, there is a heartbeat, steady and familiar, connecting lives in quiet, comforting ways. The night deepens, and a pale moon casts silver light over rooftops and quiet streets, reflecting faintly in puddles left by earlier rains. You wander along a riverbank where water laps gently against stone, and the sound mingles with the distant hum of vehicles and soft murmurs from a nearby village. Major fact: in 1945, the war in Europe drew toward a conclusion, with Germany surrendering in May, ending 6 years of intense conflict on the continent. Another fact: around the same time, Allied forces were pressing toward Japan in the Pacific, facing resistance across islands and vast oceans. You pause to watch a small boat drifting slowly on the river, the oars dipping in unison, a quiet, almost meditative motion. Obscure tidbits: during blackouts in cities under threat, families would hang small lanterns or cover windows with patterned cloth, creating shadows that told stories or signaled neighbors in coded ways. Historians still debate how effective these measures were, but they reveal the resourcefulness and creativity of people finding comfort and connection amid. The air is filled with the faint scent of damp earth, smoke from hearth fires, and faint hints of herbs drying on windowsills. A cat slinks silently along a fence, pausing to survey the calm night, its quiet presence a reminder of the ordinary life persisting quietly alongside global upheaval. Life continues in gentle patterns, meals prepared carefully, letters written by candlelight, footsteps along cobblestones echoing softly. As you stand on the riverbank, listening to the soft rhythm of water and wind, you feel the subtle pulse of history, human courage, endurance, and connection threading through the vast tapestry of conflict. Even as darkness stretches over the land, the quiet acts of daily life carry a persistent, comforting rhythm, inviting you to drift toward reflection, calm, and gentle sleep. Late night settles over a quiet town, with only the distant hum of trains and the soft whistle of the wind through rooftops breaking the stillness. You wander along a cobblestone street, noticing the shadows of chimneys and the faint flicker of candlelight in windows. Major fact: the bombing of Dresden in February 1945 created one of the most devastating urban firestorms in history, leveling much of the city and leaving tens of thousands displaced. Another fact: at the same time, civilians across Europe were grappling with food shortages, rationing, and the constant uncertainty of survival. A small cat darts across an alley, pausing to sniff at a crate of vegetables left overnight. Obscure tidbit: some townspeople would hide small food parcels or messages in the hollow spaces of walls or fences, For neighbors or travelers, a subtle act of care that went unnoticed by official authorities. Historians still debate how much these small gestures actually aided survival, yet they reveal the quiet ingenuity of everyday people. The cool night air carries the scent of wet stone and faint smoke from hearth fires, blending into a strangely comforting aroma. You notice a lone figure on a bench, reading by lantern light, absorbed in a letter or journal, the world around them quiet and unhurried, despite the chaos beyond the village. Even amidst global upheaval, small acts of normalcy persist, washing clothes by hand, sweeping the streets, tending to animals, or sharing a smile across a courtyard. You continue your walk, listening to the soft rhythm of night. Footsteps echoing faintly, a dog barking in the distance, the occasional whistle of wind through trees. Life continues in measured, reassuring patterns, and you begin to feel the subtle pulse of resilience threading quietly through each moment, a gentle counterpoint to the vast forces shaping the world beyond. The first hints of dawn appear, brushing pale light across rooftops that have seen both quiet nights and restless ones. You walk along a narrow street where windows begin to catch the early sun, reflecting soft glimmers of warmth across cobblestones, still damp with dew. Major fact, by 1945, the Allied forces were advancing steadily into Germany, liberating towns and cities while civilians cautiously emerged from hiding, assessing both loss and survival. Another fact, in the Pacific, battles like Iwo Jima and Okinawa continue to shape the final months of the war, demonstrating both immense bravery and the staggering toll of conflict. You pause near a small bakery, inhaling the comforting scent of bread rising, imagining families gathering quietly around early morning tables. Obscure tidbit. Some families would hide small journals or scrapbooks, recording daily life, weather, and news to create a tangible memory of continuity during uncertain times. Historians still debate how many of these artifacts survived the chaos of war, but they offer a rare window into ordinary life during extraordinary circumstances. The air hums faintly with the stirrings of activity. A cart rolls along the street. A neighbor waves, the soft sound of a child's footsteps echoing against stone walls. Even amidst global upheaval, these small acts anchor life. Sharing water, exchanging a kind word, tending a garden, or simply observing the first light of a new day. As you continue along the street, you feel the subtle heartbeat of history, carrying both hardship and hope. The ordinary rhythms of life, quiet, persistent, and gentle, thread through the extraordinary events of the world, inviting you to pause, reflect, and drift further into calm, immersive reflection. Morning light spills softly over a quiet village, filtering through the half-open shutters and scattering gold across worn cobblestones. You walk along a narrow lane where merchants begin to arrange their stalls, the scent of fresh bread and morning dew mingling gently in the air. Major fact, 1942 saw the pivotal Battle of Midway in the Pacific, a turning point that shifted naval superiority toward the Allies. Another fact, in North Africa. The Second Battle of El Alamein marked the beginning of a decisive push against Axis forces, signaling hope to weary soldiers and civilians alike. You notice a small boy carrying a basket of eggs, careful not to jostle them, as a mother smooths his hair and whispers encouragement. Obscure tidbit. Some townspeople kept small clay figures or charms in their windows to bring good fortune or protect their homes from raids or bombings. Historians still debate how widespread this practice really was, but it hints at the quiet ways people sought comfort amid uncertainty. The hum of distant trains and the soft clatter of carts create a subtle rhythm, blending with the gentle murmur of neighbors exchanging greetings. Life continues in small, comforting routines, sweeping a doorway, tending animals, sharing a loaf of bread. Each ordinary act threads through the extraordinary events unfolding around the world, creating a soft counterpoint to the chaos beyond the village. You pause by a well, watching ripples shimmer across the water's surface, as if reflecting not only the sky, but the hidden currents of human courage, patience, and resilience. Even amid the vast machinery of war, these quiet moments endure, reminding you that history is lived not only in battles and headlines, but in the gentle persistence of everyday life. By late morning, the streets are bathed in warm light, shadows stretching lazily across rooftops and markets. You wander along a riverside path, hearing the soft splash of water and the distant hum of early industry, subtle reminders of a world in motion. Major fact: in 1943, the Allies launched Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily, opening a new front in Europe and setting the stage for further advances toward the Italian mainland. Another fact: the same year, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising saw courageous acts of resistance by civilians facing unimaginable hardship, a testament to the enduring spirit of hope. A baker kneads dough with rhythmic care, the smell of rising bread mingling with the earthy scent of the river. Obscure tidbit: some families used coded marks on doors or small chalk symbols to indicate safe havens or supplies for neighbors in occupied areas. Historians still debate how effective these signals were, yet they reveal the subtle ingenuity people employed to protect one another. The air carries a mixture of smoke from chimneys, damp earth, and the faint tang of herbs drying in windowsills. A young girl skips along the bank, tossing pebbles into the water, her laughter rising gently against the backdrop of distant engines. Life continues quietly, yet persistently. Chores completed, letters written, animals fed, and meals shared. Each ordinary act, small and tender, threads a quiet continuity through the broader sweep of conflict. As you follow the river's gentle curve, the calm movement of water mirrors the subtle rhythm of human endurance. The ordinary and extraordinary exist together, and in these moments you sense the pulse of history itself, quiet, persistent, and softly inviting reflection, calm, and the slow drift toward rest. Afternoon light filters through the clouds, softening the outlines of rooftops, fields, and distant factories. You walk along a winding lane where smoke curls gently from chimneys, blending with the faint hum of distant engines and the rustle of leaves in the warm breeze. Major fact: 1941 witnessed the attack on Pearl Harbor, pulling the United States fully into the conflict and turning World War II into a truly global struggle. Another fact: the siege of Leningrad continued, with civilians enduring harsh winters, limited rations, and the constant shadow of artillery. Yet life persisted in small human ways. You pause near a garden where an elderly woman tends her vegetables with meticulous care, humming softly as if the song itself could keep the world at bay. Obscure tidbit: in some towns, families would carefully decorate small stones with protective symbols or initials, placing them near doorways or wells for luck and safety. Historians still debate whether these charms were truly protective or simply an expression of hope and human ingenuity. The air is a mixture of damp earth, baked clay, and faint smoke from nearby hearths. You hear the soft murmur of neighbors speaking quietly, children's laughter punctuating the rhythm of daily life, and the distant clang of factory machinery, each gesture carrying water, tending animals, sweeping a doorstep, threads ordinary human care through the extraordinary circumstances surrounding them. As you walk further, you notice a bridge over a gently flowing stream. The water catches the sunlight, creating shimmering patterns that seem to echo the quiet persistence of life. Even as history unfolds in dramatic, sometimes devastating ways, these small rhythms provide continuity, comfort, and a sense of calm resilience that underpins the larger story of the world. Evening approaches, painting the sky in pale gold and rose, and stretching long shadows across streets, alleys, and fields. You wander along a quiet avenue, listening to the soft murmur of conversation and the faint clatter of carts returning from markets. Major fact: 1942 marked the Battle of Midway, where the United States Navy decisively countered Japanese advances, changing the course of the Pacific conflict. Another fact: the same year, the Allies began strategic bombing campaigns over Europe, affecting both industrial centers and civilian areas in complex, far-reaching ways. You pause near a small bakery, inhaling the comforting aroma of warm bread, mingled with the earthy scent of damp streets. Obscure tidbit: some families kept hidden memory boxes filled with notes, small toys, or scraps of cloth as a quiet way of preserving family history during wartime. Historians still debate how many of these survived, but they offer a small, intimate window into the lives of ordinary people during extraordinary times. The cool evening air carries the distant echo of footsteps, the faint rustle of leaves, and the hum of river water gliding gently past banks lined with trees. A child skips along, trailing a ribbon behind her, while an older neighbor smiles quietly from a doorstep. Life continues in its small, patient rhythms. Letters folded and sent, animals tended, meals prepared, and small acts of kindness passed quietly between neighbors. As you follow the gentle curve of the street, you feel the quiet pulse of history threading through everyday life, reminding you that even amid global upheaval, ordinary human endurance, hope, and care continue to shape the world. These subtle moments create a rhythm both calming and persistent, carrying you gently toward reflection, understanding, and a slow, restful drift towards sleep. Night falls gradually, casting muted shadows over rooftops, streets, and distant fields. You walk along a quiet avenue where lanterns flicker gently in windows, their warm glow reflecting on the damp cobblestones. Major fact: 1943 marked the beginning of the Allied invasion of Italy, with troops landing in Sicily to open a southern front against Axis forces. Another fact: during the same period, civilians across Europe were adapting to shortages, rationing, and curfews, finding quiet resilience in everyday routines. You pause near a small garden, watching an elderly man tend his herbs by lantern light, his movements precise and deliberate. Obscure tidbit: some families in occupied cities would place small colored threads in windows or along fences as signals to alert neighbors of danger or incoming news. Historians still debate how widespread and effective these signals were, but they reflect the quiet ingenuity of ordinary people navigating extraordinary times. The night air carries the scent of earth, smoke, and faintly baked bread from nearby kitchens. You hear the distant echo of footsteps, a dog barking, and the gentle murmur of conversation. Small reminders that life continues even as history unfolds in vast, complex movements. The rhythmic patterns of human activity, cleaning, tending fires, preparing meals, provide a gentle heartbeat beneath the tension of global conflict. As you continue walking, the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of night birds create a lullaby of ordinary life. Even amid uncertainty and upheaval, these moments anchor human experience, revealing the subtle persistence of hope, care, and quiet courage threading through the vast tapestry of wartime life. The sky deepens to indigo, speckled with faint stars, as the night settles over the countryside and towns alike. You wander along a narrow path beside a river, where the gentle ripple of water mirrors the slow, patient rhythm of life beneath the looming shadow of war. Major fact: 1944 saw the D-Day landings in Normandy, a decisive action that would accelerate the liberation of Western Europe. Another fact: meanwhile, civilians across France and the Low Countries navigated the perils of occupation with both compliance and quiet resistance shaping daily routines. You pause at a wooden bridge, noticing the reflection of lanterns on the gently flowing river, the image distorted but steady. Obscure tidbit: some townsfolk used small wind chimes or bells to signal neighbors discreetly during curfews, a subtle way of communicating without attracting attention. Historians still debate how often these signals materially impacted safety, but they illustrate the ingenuity and interconnectedness of communities under pressure. The cool night air carries soft scents of damp earth, wood smoke, and herbs hung to dry in windows. A young child skips lightly across the bridge, laughter trailing behind, a moment of quiet joy amidst uncertainty. Life persists through small gestures, tending animals, preparing meals, exchanging words of reassurance, or simply watching the stars, threading resilience into ordinary routines. As you follow the river's gentle bend, the sound of flowing water, rustling leaves, and distant village murmurs creates a calming rhythm. Even against the backdrop of monumental events, these subtle human acts offer a steady pulse, inviting reflection, calm, and a gentle drift towards sleep as history moves around you with both force and grace. The first light of dawn creeps softly over rooftops and fields, brushing the village in pale gold and warming the stone streets with gentle color. You walk along a narrow lane, noticing shutters opening, chickens clucking in yards, and the faint smell of bread rising from ovens. Major fact: by early 1945, Allied forces were advancing deeper into Germany, while the Soviet army pushed westward, liberating towns and leaving both hope and devastation in their wake. Another fact: civilians were rebuilding routines, tending gardens, caring for children, and preserving small pieces of normalcy wherever possible. You pause near a fountain where water trickles steadily, carrying a quiet, timeless rhythm. Obscure tidbit: in some communities, small wooden carvings of saints or symbols were hidden in nooks and crannies, both for protection and to preserve faith during uncertain times. Historians still debate whether these acts were widely symbolic or held deep practical belief, but they reflect human creativity and resilience. The soft morning air carries the mingling scents of damp earth, smoke, and baking bread. You noticed neighbors greeting each other quietly, sharing small gestures of care, a loaf of bread, a kind word, a smile. Even amid the backdrop of global conflict, these acts anchor human life and create subtle continuity, threading ordinary routines through extraordinary circumstances. As you continue walking, the hum of distant trains, the soft clatter of carts, and the occasional bird call blend together into a lullaby of daily life. Even amidst the vast currents of war, small moments of normalcy and connection persist, offering comfort, grounding, and a quiet rhythm that mirrors the enduring resilience of the human spirit. Mid-morning settles across streets and countryside, the soft warmth of the sun illuminating quiet corners, and the faint shimmer of distant rivers. You wander along a cobbled street where children play quietly, their laughter floating over rooftops, blending with the soft hum of early labor and household chores. Major fact: by mid-1945, Germany was on the verge of surrender, and the end of conflict in Europe was imminent, though uncertainty still lingered for civilians across the continent. Another fact: in Asia, the Pacific Theater continued with island campaigns, where soldiers and civilians navigated both natural and human-made challenges daily. You pause near a small garden gate, noticing an older woman tending herbs, her hands moving rhythmically with quiet patience. Obscure tidbit: families sometimes placed small handwritten notes in drawers or jars for loved ones, a quiet record of daily life, thoughts, and memories amid chaos. Historians still debate how many of these survived, but they provide intimate glimpses into ordinary lives under extraordinary circumstances. The air carries soft scents of damp soil, smoke, and drying herbs, blending into a gentle, comforting aroma. A neighbor waves as you pass, sharing a small greeting, a reminder that human connections continue quietly, even when history's larger events dominate the horizon. Life persists in measured, small rhythms, preparing meals, tending animals, exchanging words of care, and performing routines that anchor ordinary existence. As you follow the gentle curve of the street, the soft murmur of water from a nearby fountain and the rustle of leaves create a calming cadence. Even amidst upheaval, these subtle acts thread continuity and human resilience through history, inviting reflection, calm, and a slow, restful drift towards sleep. Afternoon light softens into warm gold, stretching across rooftops, gardens, and quiet streets. You walk slowly through a village square, noticing the subtle movements of daily life. A baker dusting flour from his hands, a child chasing a ball along cobblestones, a neighbor carrying firewood. Major fact: by mid-Minus 1945, Nazi Germany was surrendering, with Allied forces consolidating control over liberated regions and civilians beginning the long process of rebuilding. Another fact: across the Pacific, the final months of the war saw intense island campaigns where both soldiers and local populations faced the relentless challenges of combat and survival. You pause near a well, watching ripples dance across the water, imagining the countless stories of resilience and hope reflected there. Obscure tidbit: some communities kept small, hidden jars of seeds or grains buried in gardens to ensure food security during times of uncertainty. Historians still debate how common this practice was, but it shows the quiet ingenuity of ordinary people preserving life amidst chaos. The evening air carries the gentle scent of smoke from hearths, damp earth, and faint traces of herbs. A soft breeze rustles the leaves of nearby trees, blending with distant footsteps and the quiet murmur of conversation. Life continues in small, patient rhythms: meals prepared, animals tended, letters written, small acts of care exchanged. Each gesture threads human continuity through the larger sweep of historical events, offering subtle comfort and reassurance. As you continue walking, the low hum of a train, the clatter of carts, and the occasional bird call create a gentle, meditative rhythm. Even amid the echoes of war, ordinary life persists, quietly resilient, offering a soft heartbeat that connects past and present, entering you in calm reflection and gentle thought. Night falls fully, casting long shadows across streets, rooftops, and fields. You wander slowly through quiet lanes where the faint glow of lanterns reflects off wet cobblestones, and the distant murmur of village life drifts softly through the air. Major fact: by the end of 1945, World War II had concluded, leaving the world altered, yet alive with stories of survival, courage, and the enduring human spirit. Another fact: millions of individuals, families, and communities began the painstaking work of reconstruction, adapting to a world forever changed, but filled with quiet opportunities for hope and renewal. You pause near a small garden gate, noticing the gentle sway of flowers in the evening breeze, a soft reminder of resilience and the persistent rhythm of life. Obscure tidbit: some families created small keepsakes, handwritten notes, carved wooden charms, or tiny sewn mementos to remember those lost and preserve memories of life during the war. Historians still debate how many of these artifacts survived, yet they provide a poignant window into the personal dimensions of global events. The air is filled with a subtle sense of damp earth, smoke from chimneys, and faint herbs drying on windowsills. A cat moves silently along a fence. A lone figure walks with careful steps, and the low hum of distant rivers or trains carries through the night. Life persists through small gestures, tending fires, preparing meals, exchanging words of comfort, observing the stars, or simply listening to the quiet rhythm of a world at rest. As you continue along the winding path, the gentle pulse of history threads softly through your mind. Ordinary acts, quiet perseverance, and human connection create a rhythm both calming and reassuring. Even amid immense upheaval, these moments endure, carrying you gently toward reflection, calm, and a slow, restful drift into sleep, where history, imagination, and the quiet heartbeat of humanity meet in soft, timeless harmony. The night stretches softly over villages, towns, and quiet fields, wrapping the world in a gentle, indigo hush. You walk slowly along a cobbled street, the faint glow of lanterns shimmering on wet stone, reflecting moments of life preserved amid the vast tides of history. The air carries this scent of damp earth, faint smoke from hearths, and the subtle aroma of herbs drying on windowsills. Each breath feels steady, rhythmic, and comforting, as if the world itself is exhaling alongside you. You notice the soft ripple of a river nearby, its gentle motion creating a soothing pulse, mirrored by the quiet footsteps of a passerby or the distant, muted clatter of a cart. Children's laughter from earlier hours has faded into sleepy murmurs, and the occasional bark of a dog punctuates the calm with a tender familiarity. Life, despite everything it has endured, persists in the small, ordinary acts, tending fires, preparing meals, sweeping a doorway, or exchanging a kind glance with a neighbor. The vast events of the world, conflict, upheaval, loss, linger faintly at the edges of your awareness, but here, in these quiet moments, they are softened by the rhythm of daily life and the gentle persistence of human resilience. Every ordinary gesture threads together continuity, hope, and calm, a subtle reminder that even amid history's grand tides, small acts endure and anchor us to the present. As you continue along your quiet path, the world feels expansive yet intimate, carrying the stories of millions softly through your imagination. With each step, each breath, each gentle observation, you drift further into calm, letting reflection, understanding, and the steady heartbeat of humanity ease you toward rest. The night deepens, the stars blink quietly above, and you are carried gently by history itself into a slow, serene, and timeless sleep. Thank you for joining me tonight. Hope you enjoyed the story If you're not in deep sleep by now, enjoy the peaceful fireplace background and drift into peace.